6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is good, everybody? What is good? It is Tuesday. It is 9 o'clock. The kids are asleep. The wife is asleep. It's time for Shooting the Shit Uncensored, baby. And it is hosted by me, the dad bod god himself, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And we are brought to you live by the MWA Podcast Network, ladies and gentlemen, your one-stop shop for all your pro wrestling entertainment and media. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, share, like wherever you find us. As long as you're finding us, make sure you're tuning in. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on a podcast platform, leave us a 5-star review. Woo! Guys, I'm excited. Tonight, I have a very special guest all the way from Queensland, Australia, Kyla Knight. But before I bring out Kyla, I want to take a quick second, a quick moment, if you will, to allow me to thank some of our amazing sponsors who help us keep these lights on up in this bitch every single week. First up is sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, sleefs.com. Now, if you're an athlete or you know someone, everybody knows an athlete, right? So you need to go and check out sleefs.com. They've got armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, compression socks, headbands, mouth guards, boots, and guys, they've even got these dirty boxes. Now, I keep raving about the dirty boxes. They've sent me boxes of these boxes, and they're the most comfortable boxes that I own. How many times can I say boxes in a sentence? Boxes, boxes, boxes. Anyway, guys, these dirty boxes are amazing. They stay fresh. They stay dry. They're perfect if you're an active person. Very comfortable, and they've got some funky designs on the front of them. So check out sleeps.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount at your final purchase. Now, guys, everyone's vaping these days. No one's smoking. And if they are smoking, you need to get off that shit. If you're vaping, you need to get off that shit. You need to go to healthvape.com. This is your healthy vaping alternative. All of their products, no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals, and they're vitamin infused. That's right, guys. They're like vaping a Red Bull or like maybe vitamin C. I don't know. But guys, check out healthvape.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Now, guys, you heard me raving about the MWA Podcast Network. We've got some great shows going, like this one, like Shooting the Shit Uncensored, like NXT Roundup, like Killing the Business with ECW Original, The Kingpin, Angel Medina, and King Mega, and also Knights of the Gimmick Table, hosted by Cade Lothbrock and the Dead Presidents. So, guys, make sure you check out all of those shows. Hit that subscribe button, like, share, follow, all of that good shit. Now, guys, I can see we got a couple of people in the comments already on Facebook. We got Larry. Thank you very much for tuning in. And Facebook user, thank you for tuning in, guys. But without further ado, I'm going to bring out the person you all came to see. And it ain't me. But let's bring her out. It's Kyla Knight. Kyla, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, Kyla, to have you on. You know, it's interesting. Like, I first saw you being and this is how I found you, is you were being advertised for the DMDU show, and DMDU has brought in some amazing talent and introduced, I think, Australian wrestling to some amazing talent that a lot of us hadn't heard of before. So I do apologize to admit that I hadn't heard of you before this, but it made me look in, seeing that you're a champion in Queensland for EWA, I believe it as well. You hold their women's championship. But Kyla, how did you get into professional wrestling? Like that's what I want to know. Like how did it all start for you?
Just the stereotypical, 12-year-old watching wrestling growing up and deciding one day, yeah, I'm going to do that. For me, it was pretty much after watching Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. I was like, I want to be where they are.
Yeah, that's a good spot to want to be in.
Yeah.
But was that the first match, or was that the almost like the religious match, like good versus evil? Because I kind of remember that was like when they were all dressed in white and he was all dressed in, and Tank was all in black. So
it was the Korea versus streak match.
That was, both of those matches were pretty good. Yeah. But what was it about that match that really, captivated you? Was it the storytelling of it? Was it the psychology in ring? Like, what was it particularly?
It was more, knowing now that was the match Shawn Michaels decided to be his last, and just having him enter, and then the last moments at the end of his match, having him just be like that calmness, I guess you kind of saw. Whereas I've achieved everything. I've accomplished everything I could have done. And I was like, yeah, I want to feel that peace. I want to be right where he is one day.
And that would be a hard, I can imagine, as a performer, being that would be a hard decision to do, to hang up the boots. If you're not injured, but it's you know what, my step isn't as quick as what it used to be. I still think that would be a hard thing to give up.
Oh, it definitely would. Because personally speaking, I left wrestling for about 5 months, a couple of years back. And then, that itch just never goes away. So it came back, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come back.
Yeah. Because I think that's the thing. Once you have a taste of it, it's you're either going, you know what, this ain't for me at all, or it's no, I got to keep going and pursuing this.
Yeah. It's all or nothing, literally.
Yeah. And how old were you when you went, you know what, I'm going to decide to take this step and be a wrestler?
I had that first initial epiphany at 12, but the actual, I was probably 17, 18 when I decided I was going to take that step.
Yeah. And which school did you go to first? Because I know Queensland, you guys have a couple of schools, but it's I think Bobby Bishop and Lucille Brawl run a school, and I think there's another couple around near the Gold Coast, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know the area too well.
Yeah, I actually started off with IPW Australia.
Okay.
So I was with them for a few years, being trained by Obi Cartel and BJ Blade. And then I went to the States and I trained at Flatbacks. With, Sean Spears. Flatbacks?
Flatbacks? Okay, yeah. So Sean Spears and Tyler Breeze School, right?
Yeah. And then I came back and just started training with Venom Pro Wrestling now. And I do alternate between Venom and 3 Count.
Yeah. How did you find going over to the United States? When did that decision come to you? Was it all right, no worries, I've learned what I can learn here? Or was it you know what, I need to go over and get experience in the US? What was the driving force in that?
It was kind of a spur of a moment because, funny story, I went skydiving and then a week later I saw Breeze post about it. I was like, well, I just went skydiving last week. I'm going to apply. And if he says no, I will. So on this high.
So you went skydiving. That's a pretty crazy thing. So you go skydiving, you've got this adrenaline going, you apply. Obviously the response is positive and says, hey, come on over.
Yeah, pretty much.
And how did you find going over to the United States? Were you traveling by yourself? Did you go with a group of you? What was the situation around the trip?
I was originally planning to go with a friend, but we had a bit of a falling out, so I ended up going by myself. But that's okay, because, I ended up being the first Australian to train there. Humble brag. But it was very scary because like it's my first time going overseas by myself, but it was a good adventure.
How was the school like when you first went there? Like obviously I'm imagining it'd be quite nerve-wracking, like going into a place like foreign country, foreign everything, and just being like, hey, I'm the new one, like I'm just here to join. Like how was the intro into the academy?
It was pretty cruisy because like we all walked in and then kind of just like sat down, and then Spears walks in, and then Breeze walks in, and then they introduce themselves, we introduce ourselves, and they're like, oh, Australian, cool. So it was just, I was freaking out about nothing.
Yeah. And how did you find like the training over there? Like, was there much like differences? Was there a lot of similarities into the way like Australians training? Like, what was it around?
They trained to the standard of WWE. So it was very strict, very blunt, very cardio driven.
And like, did you find like you were able to keep up with it, or was like were you like, holy shit, what am I in for here? Like, what was your cardio level going in?
My cardio was decent enough because like I was training probably about 4 times a week at this point, including doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
But it still like wasn't as good as it should have been. So the first 2 weeks was like, oh my god, I'm in way over my head. But then it kind of just got easier the more like I trained. Yeah.
The more repetitions you get in, the better it is, obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, so how long did you spend over at Flatbacks for?
About 8 weeks.
And like, what was the big, like, you know, did you have like a big takeaway moment from that? Or like, was there like, you know, something that you were able to take away going, you know what, this is a valuable lesson I've just learned here? Or was it just like a culmination of everything?
It was a combination of everything. Like, Spears and Breeze were both very down to earth. They were very easy to talk to. And I confided in them a lot about like a lot of personal things that was happening back home, wrestling wise. So yeah, it just kind of helped me make some decisions that needed to be made. And yeah.
I mean, you know, I think when you've got people like at that level being able to give you advice about like the business as well, like people who have been at that highest level and have probably seen politicking in wrestling at the highest level as well, that to get guys advice from those two, especially have been around the system as long as they had, that's invaluable.
Oh, definitely. And like it wasn't just Breeze and Spears coming in. Like I had Billy Gunn rock up. I had the pleasure of meeting Brody Lee. You know, I got advice from him as well.
And what was his advice to you?
So I sat down and asked him about like, what can I do as an independent wrestler? And he just said to me, just reach out and make as many contacts as you possibly can. Yeah. He was just so down to earth. Like he was just so willing to help. You know, all the nice things everyone said about him, all true.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like when you meet people that are like positive in the wrestling business, like especially like that you have seen on television, you look up to, when you have that opportunity to meet them, and then they're like, they live up to that expectation, because they always say never meet your heroes, right? But when you do and they're like completely awesome, you're like, this is amazing. Like,
yeah.
I feel like we're friends now. You know what I mean? Like, what's up, bro?
My friend now.
Yeah. What's up, Billy Gunn? You know, but like, how did you find training with Billy Gunn? Because like seeing how he was a trainer on Tough Enough like years ago, like he seemed like to be a pretty intense individual. Like, how was he to train with?
Very stern, very blunt. But he was always like, no matter like how stern and blunt he was just willing to help no matter what. But my proud moment was I actually made him laugh training once.
How did you pop Billy Gunn?
We're doing atomic drops, and because like I was the only girl training in this class, and he comes to me like bear hug. It's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. Spears like, don't look at me like you don't know what to do. Just grab him. So I hugged him. I don't think he knew what to do, so he kind of hugged back and laughed about it. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, but you know what? Like, why not give Billy? He looks like he'd be a nice guy. Just be like, you know what? Well, let's just go in. We're going to do this.
Yeah. It was great.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been. But when you were in the States, did you get an opportunity to work any promotions when you were over there and to put the foot in the indie circuit there?
Sadly, no, because when I was training over there was when COVID really hit, which
Mm,
was really unfortunate. So it cut my time in the States short, and it just ruined a lot of like my plans.
yeah. And like, is there plans to go back there? Like, when do you think you'll be heading back over stateside?
I'd love to go back, but it probably won't be for like another year, especially with like financial stuff and all that. Just
Oh, sure.
hard to save it all up.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely, man. I completely feel you on that one. So, but it's interesting though, like, as EWA, is a promotion over there in Queensland as well. You're the women's champion there. How long have you had that belt? Like, how long have you been champion over there for?
Since December 18th.
It's December
So
18th.
only a couple of months, yeah.
Yeah. And is this the first championship you've held in wrestling yet, or is it?
Yep.
And
First
like,
title.
how does, like, as a performer, like, to get a title, like, is it like now, like, because obviously you have a company put a championship on you as like, okay, we're investing in you, we believe in you. Is it taken like as like, oh wow, this is a big opportunity, or is it like, it's just a thing that's part of the storyline and part of the show?
For me, I think it's more, it's a huge opportunity because all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm being acknowledged and recognized for my work in the ring. I gotta keep that up. Like I gotta work twice as hard now to maintain that.
Yeah. And like, to be able to do that, that's obviously, you want to improve and grow as a performer as well. Getting an opportunity to go over to Melbourne and to go and wrestle in DMDU, which is probably one of the hottest up and coming promotions at the moment, and wrestling the El Jefe over there, Joel, Bateman. That's another huge opportunity for you that you had as well recently. And how did that opportunity come about?
So I've been in contact with Joel for a while. He's been like a really good supporting and driving force for me this last year. I confided in him with a lot of things and sent him a lot of matches for feedback and advice and opinion. And I don't know, I think he just sees something in me, wanted to push me and challenge me, in his words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think, like, it's to be able to get better at something, you have to be taken out of that comfort zone. You have to be taken
exactly.
out of that norm. And especially in wrestling, because anything can happen in that ring. Like, accidents can happen. And when you become an experienced, performer, you'll be able to know how to handle that situation. Go, right, okay, no worries. We can then keep calm in that. Whereas, like, having those opportunities to wrestle veterans like Joel and that must be massive benefit for you.
Oh, huge. It was such like an honor and a great opportunity. Like I can't thank Joel enough for that.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that was like seeing like your first deathmatch live, which was an experience for you. And deathmatch wrestling being something that is so growing in the world, that's something that you do want to sort of get in there and have a go at eventually. You were mentioning before.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it'd be like a lot of fun. Like even though my only experience in a hardcore match was just one singles match I had back in 2020, but I had a lot of fun in that. So yeah, be keen.
Is there a particular style of match that you'd want to try and have in a death match?
I think it's gonna sound a little unhinged, like on my part. I would love to go through a table eventually.
Not at all. Not at all. I think that every wrestler should want to go through a table at some stage in their career. I mean, that's the main part. But, as far as like wrestling now over in Australia, like, Queensland, I feel like doesn't really necessarily get the most amount of love in Aussie wrestling. Like, am I wrong on that? Like, am I far off? What's your thoughts?
Queensland does have a bit of a stigma. I don't know about that, what that stigma is. I've just heard from other people that there's a reputation about it. So a lot of what's happening now is like Bobby and Lucille are trying to help improve that reputation, like break that down. I don't know. I'm not too educated on that topic, to be honest.
No, it was just more of like getting your opinion. Like, if you thought that, I don't want it, like, Queensland is just, I don't know. I think that there's talent there, and I think there's a lot of good, like, there's a few good companies there, obviously, but it's like I feel like they don't get the love from the rest of the, like, Australia.
It is like that, but like I said, I don't have much of an informed opinion on it, just because I tend to talk to a lot of people that's not in Queensland for feedback and advice.
Sure.
So I don't really see that.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And, as far as, your 2022, like, obviously we've had the last couple of years with COVID and, with lockdowns, you just mentioned, obviously, reaching out to people that are mainly interstate for feedback and getting that growth. Where would you like to go in 2022? Like, going to DMDU, you've gone and ticked that off the box, but what are the other promotions that you'd like to go and, in there and have a match in and jump in their ring?
I think right now I just would like to train with Istria down at Wrestle Rampage. As much as wrestling, that would be like an added bonus, but I think for the time being, with like shows being on held, training's just that main focal point.
Yeah. And I think that that's the benefit of being able to get as much training in, is just being able to put into practice things and going, okay, trial and error, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, for you, like, what's your preferred style of wrestling? Like, do you prefer to be a heel, babyface, tweener? Like, where's your preference as far as character work goes?
I am very happy as a tweener, surprisingly. Like, I debuted heel, I worked face. Both had, the unique aspects, but I have a lot more fun being a tweener.
Yeah. I mean, like that, like, I find like wrestling now, like with heels and baby faces, it's evolved where there is more tweeners as opposed to just like a straight up heel or a straight up baby face. Whereas, because wrestling is so subjective, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I might like someone who's a complete dick, you know what I mean? Like, or you might hate someone who's like a goody two shoes or something like that. So I think that it's like the tweener stage is good because it's more realistic as how people are. It's like tweeners can be the realism, I think, more in wrestling, where it's like people can have off days and say things that are kind of fucked it sometimes because they're frustrated or whatever it may be. It's not always like sunshines and lollipops or like demons and bad shit.
Yeah.
But as far as your character and stuff like that, how did it take you a while to develop your style of character, what you were looking to represent?
Oh, definitely. Like, I've been through so many like gear changes, gimmick changes, just trying to figure out who I am, what like message and person and character I'm trying to get across. So it took ages to get to something somewhere where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. And I think, like, looking at, at your match, recently, and also how you, present yourself and appear, like, you look like a complete badass. You have that sort of look of like, I'm going to rip someone's head off, and, that intimidating look. So I think that, the character work obviously has to be able to match that appearance and that demeanor that you're putting off, as opposed to looking a certain way but then going out and being something completely opposite, like skipping down and having Wiggles music going out the ring. I don't know, like,
no, I've always been told that I tend to have like such an intense look about me and the way I work, so I try to match that, I guess.
But intensity is good, though, because like I said, I go back to realism. It gives a sense of realism to it. If you're intense, you're having a real fight with someone, you're going to be intense. You're going to have that level of intensity in a legit fight. So when you see that in professional wrestling, it adds that next level of realism to it.
Yeah.
But as far as you're being able to wrestle some opponents, who are some of the names in Australian wrestling that you'd like to get in there and have a match with that you haven't had the opportunity to?
Oh, maybe I think I'd like to have a match with like Rochelle Rogue. She's been doing pretty good.
Yeah, she's like lighting the world on fire at the moment. She's doing really well.
Yeah,
So
she's got a lot of potential.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of young people in Australian wrestling, and Rochelle Rogue, being as young as she is and being as good as she is, it's almost scary how good she's going to be in 5 years, I believe.
Yeah, she's got a lot of talent.
Oh, 100%. And as far as you mentioned breaking into wrestling and getting into wrestling, the one moment was watching Taker versus Sean. Once you broke into it, obviously your wrestling knowledge and your wrestling favorites would have evolved, but once you got into wrestling, did your views of who you enjoyed watching before you were a performer change as opposed to once you become a performer?
No, actually, I always had my top 3 I'd always watch, and knowing things I know now, I still watch those same 3 people because their style and the way they work pretty much inspired me and the way I work. So Bryan Danielson, definitely up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are the other 2? So Bryan Danielson,
Shawn Michaels, and Jericho.
No, that's a pretty unique mix. All 3 very technical sound guys, but very different as well, and also very good, character work as well.
Yeah. Daniel, Danielson more for his technical ability, Michaels on his showcase, Jericho on his just loud and outspoken personality. Yeah.
I've always compared Jericho to Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, because it's he's been cool for 30 years, and you know what I mean, he's been relevant and cool for 30 years, and I think that's hard to do as well. And for someone like Jericho who has been around as long as he has, to keep evolving and getting over, that speaks volumes as well. So no, he's definitely one of my top 3 as well. So but as far as getting opportunities now and going over and to being able to go, what do you think would be the next best logical step for you in your career?
I think, I don't know, maybe try and break into the international market.
Yeah. Over into the US and places like that.
Yeah.
I think now is probably the best time for Australians to be doing it, to be honest, because if you watch NXT, you see on a 90-minute show, 4 or 5 Australians in prominent spots on the show, and for 90 minutes of television, you know what I mean, that's not a lot of time.
No, but that's still great. It's they're opening doors for eyes to be on the Australian product.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Hardcore wrestling fans will go down these little rabbit holes where it's okay, I'm going to look up Grayson Waller. Oh, he started at PWA. Oh, he also wrestled at another place, FWA. What's this? Oh, who's this? You know what I mean? And I think wrestling, hardcore fans will go down these rabbit holes and then start finding different little avenues and stuff like that. And I think that has brought a lot more, I think Australian eyes as well. You see shows, and I've mentioned this before, where it's now that we're out of lockdown, I think local shows will probably be sold out a lot quicker. They'll be getting, more people to them, just because it's people have been in lockdown, and, it's even the fans that haven't never been to a local show now will be I don't know the next time I'll be able to get to do this. If we go in lockdown again, I need to go to see a live wrestling show.
Yeah. I think now a lot of companies really should, take advantage of the fact that everyone's out of lockdown and really push for their shows to, get new eyes, words.
Yeah, look, I think it's, and I think there's a lot of companies out there doing that, and having a little bit of crossover, and with other avenues as well into their product. I think that also helps, but I think Aussie wrestling has been so good for so long, and it's like there's just new people that are just coming out that are just phenomenal. And that's the thing, like you see a couple of people get signed and go over to WWE. That's okay. Like, I mean, the Australian scene's that healthy and that growing and that glowing that, there's such a large amount of talent here. And I think, as far as like, you look at wrestling, to me, I think tag team wrestling and women's wrestling is Australia has the best performers in the world, hands down.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I keep thinking of something to say, and then my mind just goes blank.
That's the beauty of podcasting, isn't it? Like you sit there like, I wish I should have said that. Fuck. But yeah, just cut me off. Just say whatever you want to say whenever you want to say it. This is shooting the shit uncensored. There's no lines here. Just jump in. But
Okay.
yeah, as far as as wrestling goes, I think Australian wrestling has a lot of talented women in it, and I think that by far is the best in the world, hands down. And you mentioned Rochelle Rogue is one who's up and coming, but like there's so much other amazing talent here as well. And now putting your own name into that mix as well.
Yeah, which is been very like surprising, because all of a sudden, it feels like I'm growing a lot, because all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, people recognize me, people want to work with me. So it's been a bit of a 180 this last year, whereas I've just kind of hit away and focused on training, and it's like, okay, now I want to make a statement.
Yeah, and now you are, and as you said, people are like saying, they want to work with you, and I think that's probably the ultimate compliment, really.
Oh, definitely, because a lot of the people who've said that are people who I've watched on shows, who I've worked the same show with, but never against. So it's like have them turning around to say, yeah, I want to work a match with you one day. It's like, oh, thank you.
It's humbling, right? It's just
Yeah.
this is awesome. But I think that's what the levels of trying to be a better performer, and that is kind of saying you're doing well, keep it up. Like you know what I mean? Like for them to say that and to put their name on that, I think that's easy to say, hey, you're doing well, great match. You know what I mean? That's sort of like throwaway comment, but to say, hey, I want to get in there and chop it up with you, that's something different.
Yeah, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something right.
100%. How do you find the intergender wrestling? Guys against girls. You recently had a match against Joel. What's it like in Queensland? Is intergender wrestling as big as it is everywhere else?
Not really, because a lot of companies tend to stay away from intergender because of the stigma around domestic abuse. But if you can work a match in a way where it's technical and balanced, no one will think of the domestic abuse side of it. I personally find it fun. I feel like it's a true test to my skill and what I'm capable of. So I personally enjoy intergender matches.
I enjoy it when it's like anything. Good wrestling's good wrestling. It doesn't matter what it is. I laugh when people say, oh, but it's not realistic when a woman beats a man. Hey, I've gone and I've done jiu-jitsu and I've rolled with women, and I will admit it. I have tapped out. I have been made a bitch, everything like that, because a more skilled athlete was able to tap me out. That's hands down. You know what I mean? It didn't matter about gender. You know what I mean? Like me being a man had no, gain over her at all. And I think that that's a realistic thing. But people who don't have that combat sport or even that sort of background, I think, won't sort of have that mentality. But if you've been in a combat sport, and not even take away pro wrestling, but like a boxing or something like that, you can sort of go, hang on a second. Well, that's how you actually get better, is You know what I mean? If she can only work her, and her, and can't work these 5 guys, but her working these 5 guys will make her a better performer and take her to the next level, it makes sense to work those matches.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think as long as it makes sense, you know, it's pro.
Yeah.
But that's the thing; it's pro wrestling, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to always make sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, the WWE had an undead wizard, and he's Hall of Famer.
Exactly. Or having like zombies coming out of the ground. And, it's just, But that's the thing. That shit's perfectly fine. But intergender wrestling's where we draw the fucking line. But look, we are getting to that time of the show. We are going to go into 60 seconds with Piers. How this works, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to fire off a bunch of questions to Kyla. She's got 60 seconds to answer as many as she possibly can. Kyla, are you ready to start this game?
Let's do this.
All right, we'll get going. First one, what sport did you play as a kid?
Softball.
What is your most embarrassing story from school?
I can't think of one.
If you could ask Vince McMahon one question, what would it be?
Oh, Jesus. No, I can't think of it. Sorry.
Home barbecues or raging night at a nightclub?
Barbecues.
What is your dream car?
Dodge Viper.
If you could only eat one meal type for an entire week, which would it be?
Stir fry.
Would you rather fight 2 horse-sized ducks or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses.
Aussie rules or NFL?
Aussie rules.
Last one. In 5 minutes, you are being shipped to outer space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
My phone and a camera. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, why not? Phone and a camera. You got one in there. But Kyla, where can everyone support you, follow you, get some merch?
So my socials are both on Instagram and Twitter at Kyla Knight GC. And you can buy my Punk Devil t-shirts at What a Maneuver.
There you go, guys. We'll make sure to get the links and put them in the description of this video on YouTube and in the podcast platform so you can go and get some Kyla Knight merch. But Kyla, thank you very much for being on Shooting the Shit. It's been an absolute pleasure. Guys, make sure you do go and give Kyla a follow on her social media. Make sure you keep an eye on her. She's just, like I said, debuted at DMDU. She is a fast rising star in Australian wrestling, and I'm excited to see some more of her matches, as I'm sure the rest of you are as well. But guys, do me another favor, wherever you're finding us, do me that one favor, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, give us a 5-star review, all that good shit. But guys, without further ado, it has been an amazing time. We are going to bid you good night. Thank you to our sponsors, Sleeves and Health Vape. Make sure you use promo codes MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. But guys, we'll see you again very soon. Kyla, again, thank you for being an amazing guest.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Pleasure. Talk soon. Peace.
See ya.